Hello and welcome to the Unplayable Podcast. My name is Josh Schonafinger and I'm joined by Jack Paynter, and we're very lucky today, later on in the episode, to be joined by New South Wales captain Kurtis Patterson. Welcome, Jack. How are you?
Thank you, Josh. Thanks for having me along again. We'll be hearing from Kurtis Patterson shortly. The Blues just fell short in the Marsh Cup last year, and in the Shield as well, they finished fourth. So it'll be interesting to see what he has and his thoughts for the season ahead.
Yeah, let's see if he wants to add to those two tests he earned in 2018-2019. Now, without further ado, let's get into the chat with Kurtis Patterson. It is an absolute pleasure to introduce Blues captain Kurtis Patterson to the Unplayable Podcast. Welcome, Kurtis. Tell us, how's your off-season been so far?
Yeah, thank you, guys. It's been actually a really fun one, to be honest. We were really lucky at the Blues this year. We've got a brand spanking new facility, so that's been really nice. Pre-season training can sometimes be very much indoors. It's quite cold. It's generally a lot of the more fundamental stuff and a bit of exploration, but all of that's kind of been made a lot more enjoyable with brand new shiny toys, so to speak. All the boys have been getting amongst the new gym. We've got an oval on at our facility now, which we haven't had for even when we were based at the SCG, we could rarely use the SCG. So it's pretty much the first time in a lot of our careers that we can just walk from the gym and go out and do our running and do our fielding practice and all of that. So it's been a lot of fun. But having said that, it's always the same this time of year. We've got about 20 guys who are itching to play some cricket and get out of the nets and get out of training and start playing some competitive games.
Now, you missed the last game of last season with the birth of your first child. Did you get any time off, or was it all hands on deck there?
We've actually been really lucky. We've got a good little boy. Hayden's his name. As far as babies go, speaking of some other friends that have gone through the same thing, we're sleeping pretty well. My wife's taking the brunt of the nighttime shifts over me, so I can't complain too much. But no, it was a really special time. Being able to be there for the first, pretty much uninterrupted for the first 3 months of Hayden's life was something that I consider myself to be very fortunate, because I think it would have been I would have probably struggled, to be honest, if he was born, say, September, October, right as the cricket season's kicking off, or somewhere in the middle there. I think I would have found it really tough to juggle the two. So it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. It's probably been more fun now that I'm kind of able to go from home to training. It's created a nice little separation for me between work and home, so to speak. So no, I've certainly had the time off, and I've loved having something like a little baby to take my mind off the game.
And so no travel into somewhere warmer in the world this off-season, just been in Sydney?
No, we actually took, my wife's American, so we actually took Hayden back to see my wife Jocelyn's family when he was 8 weeks old. So it was a journey. They live on the east coast of the US, so it's a long way from Sydney. It's about 23 hours of travel, which, as you can imagine, with an 8-week-old, certainly had its challenges. But we had a great time over there. Obviously, the family loved seeing him. It was great. My wife hadn't seen her family for about, I think, 3 to 4 years with COVID. So it was a really special trip, and it was hot and early 30 degrees every day over there, and I was getting calls from mum and dad back home that it was rain and cold in Sydney. So we had about 3 or 4 weeks over there before pre-season started, which was fantastic.
How does the cricket chat go with the in-laws? Have you developed them into a love of the game yet?
It's funny, yeah. They're very passionate. My wife played D1 soccer in college, and her brother was on the football team at the University of South Carolina. So they're a very big sporting family. They've tried to get into cricket. They watch the streams when they're on. And I think even in the US there's a channel that shows the Big Bash. So they tune in when they can. They record it when it's on in the middle of the night and watch it the next day. But no, they're all very keen. They don't quite understand the game, but they're certainly a lot better than where they were 3 years ago.
And how's your pre-season been now that the practice matches have started and you've been in the nets for a little while? How are you feeling about your game heading into this summer?
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a good place. I've probably been a bit guilty in the past, to be honest, of peaking a little bit too early. I sometimes just try and get everything under control as quickly as I can. And sometimes I'm kind of hitting my peak in, mid-August, mid-end August, rather than, a month or 6 weeks later towards the back end of September. So that's been nice. I feel like, I've kind of timed that a bit better this year. I didn't hit anywhere near as many balls at the beginning of preseason, and I've kind of slowly just ramped it up as we've got into practice games and as we're nearing game one on Friday. So I feel like I'm in a good place. I feel ready to go out there and play, but at the same time, I feel like I've still got, I guess I've still got a bit more work to do to get to my best, if that makes sense. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing this time of year.
Will Kosky obviously made the headlines in the second 11 last week, but there were some good performances for you guys in Matt Gilkson and Ryan Hackney. That must be pleasing as captain.
Yeah, it is. I feel like our batting groups just really hit their strides at the right time, to be honest. Early season, I guess the earlier trial matches, sometimes the ones we had as an intra-squad before we played the Vics, and even the first game or two against Victoria, we probably let ourselves down with some I'll just call them some rusty errors, some pre-season errors, like we're still in the nets with no consequences. But, Matt Jukes, you mentioned Matt Jukes and Ryan Hackney, they've both kind of been in the runs, but on top of the two of them, Lockie Hearn scored a really good 100 in our last practice match on Saturday, so did young Blake Nikitaris. So feel really comfortable with where the whole squad's at, but particularly the batting group. I guess the improvement and then the timing of where I think a lot of the guys are peaking, I think is bang on. So Friday should be a nice start for us.
And on a personal note for you, you took the captaincy full-time last year. Is that something that comes naturally to you? Is that something you enjoy doing? What's captaincy look like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the on-field stuff is always, I don't know if I'd say it's come naturally, but it's something I've kind of always done, playing in all my younger teams. I was captain or vice captain kind of most of the time, just because I was a batter who didn't bowl and I was one of the best batters. That's kind of the criteria when you're young, but I had a lot of practice at it, so it's something that I've done for a lot of my career. I think the bigger challenge and I guess the bigger learning curve is just when you're obviously captaining at a professional level or first class level. It's a lot more than just the on field stuff. It's making sure the change room's in the right place and the culture of I guess the team's moving in the right direction. And I kind of view a really important part of my role is making sure that the Blues are in a better place by the time my time's done, whenever that is. So all of that stuff's been a good challenge. I love it. I really enjoy it. I love everything about New South Wales cricket, and I wanted to do really well when I'm in charge, and I also wanted to do really well as we keep moving forward. So the on-field stuff, I feel like that kind of takes care of itself, but the last 18 months has been a really good learning curve in all those other things that come with being captain of a professional team.
You've got a lot of leaders in the squad, obviously New South Wales, but one guy that's really stepped up over the last season has been Jason Sanger as well, who's been installed as your deputy for this year. Are you expecting another big season from him?
Yeah, I am. He's one of the hardest workers in our group. He's got a deep love for the game, but I think he's really big improvement over the last probably 12 to 18 months, or his two, I think, big areas of improvement has been his leadership, number one. I think he kind of probably surprised himself more than anyone else with how natural it came to him when he took over the Thunder last year when Usman left. And that's quite a high pressure environment for a young guy to be thrust in and to captain the squad. And I obviously wasn't a part of that team, but hearing reports from the guys, he did a great job. So and I think with his batting and just his cricket in general, whilst he's a very hard trainer and he's a very dedicated player, he's been able to kind of relax, I think, when he goes out in the middle and just almost just enjoy himself and trust with the amount of work he puts into it, almost just go out there and trust his work ethic and trust his game. So I think he's just going to keep going from strength to strength, and he's not alone. I feel like we've had probably a core group of 4 or 5 young batters who have got a few games into them now over the last couple of years, and they're kind of entering that nice phase of moving, I guess, out of their late teens, early 20s into their kind of early to mid 20s. And Zhang's one of those guys, and I think he showed what he can do last year, and I've no doubt he'll just keep building on from that.
You mentioned how much you love New South Wales cricket. Well, you had a breakout, or your best BBL season to date with the Scorchers last year, won the title, and now you've made the switch back to the Sixers. Was that a tough decision for you to make?
It really was, yeah. It was the first time in my cricket career where something other than cricket played a part in my decision, if that makes sense. Obviously, I've never had a child until now, and that was a big reason for the move. Just being able to have what's always a fun time of year, that Christmas New Year period. Being able to be at home and be in Sydney for that was something that was a little too good to pass up. I think if we lost that final last year, it probably would have been a little bit different. I probably would have, run it back with the Scorchers, so to speak, and felt like there would have been some unfinished business. But it felt like just I had a great time last year with the group. The Scorchers played one home game all year, so the challenges we faced, I think, were fairly high, and the way I think the group stuck together was really important. I think it played a big role in us winning the tournament. So everything just kind of felt like it was the right ending. I guess you don't always in sport have the opportunity to, I guess, leave on a high, but being able to play an important role in helping the Scorchers win the Big Bash, and obviously timing that with coming off contract, it felt like a nice time to leave my time there, leave that chapter there, and come back to Sydney. I started my career BBL2 with the Sixers, which not everyone knows. Had a very, very forgettable game, the one game I played there, but I play obviously a lot of cricket with those Sixers guys in the Blues all year round, and play the same club as Moses. We played a lot of cricket together over the last 10, 11 years, so when the opportunity kind of presented itself, it was too hard to knock back.
You've done well though. You've swapped the most successful club for the second most.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I think about that a bit. Yeah, you look at all the franchises, as you say, they're the two most successful teams in the competition. So again, that was almost made the decision quite easy, that I didn't feel like I was having to take a step back in, I guess the team culture or the strength of the team. It was almost quite an easy switch.
Have you spoken to Greg Shippard much about what your role would be? They've got Josh Phillippe there and drafted James Vince again, obviously, so they've got some strength at the top of the order, but do you feel you could slot in around those guys, perhaps at number 3 or number 4?
Yeah, I think so. We've had some brief chats. We haven't had anything serious. Obviously, we've all kind of got our New South Wales hat on this time of year, but the kind of feedback I got was that there'll be opportunities similar to what I had in Perth, just to be able to play somewhere at the top of the order and just be able to play with freedom. And that was kind of how I played my best cricket last year. I wasn't trying to prove anything to myself. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone else. I just went out there and tried to hit every ball for 4 or 6, and just kind of enjoyed my cricket, and it felt like that's what got the best out of me. So both Shippy and Moses kind of conveyed that they wouldn't be expecting anything else out of me this year. So that was quite comforting and pleasing to hear.
And I just want to touch on that one game you played for the Sixers. As you said, not many people know that. So what do you remember about that game? I mean, the competition was a lot different back then, and you were obviously quite fresh on the scene as well.
Yeah. Well, I remember Stuart Clark was the general manager of the team that year, and I was fairly young. I think I played the one game for New South Wales at the time, and when I signed with the Sixers, it was very much you're probably not going to play this year. But it's more of a long term signing. We want to get you in and kind of keep you for the long term. So I just kind of came to every game and just enjoyed it from essentially the best seat in the house on the sideline. Didn't think I was ever going to play, so that game was no different. I got out to the nets. I generally had one of the little sidearms and was just getting the guys who were playing, just helping out with their preparation. And then Trevor Bayliss just came up and tapped me on the shoulder, I think, because I was throwing balls to one of the players, and said, "You might want to go and put the pads on and hit a few, because such and such has gone down injured, and someone else is sick, or someone else has got picked for Australia." I can't remember what it was, but I went from kind of 3 back to them playing and batting at 6. So it's a bit of a whirlwind, to be honest, because it was the first game in my career playing in front of any sort of crowd. I think there was maybe 20,000 at the SCG, and it was obviously as loud as I've ever seen it. So it was yeah, I just remember being so really overwhelmed by it, to be honest. Both not so much with the bat, to be honest, but more so when I went out there in the field, just thinking like, holy smokes, this is the big leagues now. So, um, yeah. But having said that, after that experience, I walked off the field and survived it, and everything went okay. I think we lost the game. I remember Ricky Ponting just peeled off a 60 not out or something like that. So that was another thing I guess I kind of took from that game was it was nice that I was able to play that game because that was the one and only time I shared a field with someone like Ricky, who I was kind of one of three guys that I really looked up to when I was young.
And you spoke earlier about that mindset of going out and trying to hit every ball for 4 or 6. Was that sort of the change in the breakout season, or was there any sort of technical adjustments that helped lift your T20 game last year?
Yeah, it was a mixture of both. Trying to hit every ball for 4 or 6 is a bit of a stretch, but certainly just trying to be really aggressive. Just trying to be really aggressive when the bowler would bowl the ball, trying to hit the ball hard, and then reacting if the ball wasn't there or otherwise. But yeah, so that mindset was definitely an important one. It's obviously a lot easier to have that mindset. We had my opinion, a borderline international batting lineup at Perth. So batting number one there and having those other 5 guys behind, or even 6 guys with Ashton Agar batting at 7, kind of allows you to have that freedom a lot more. But on top of that, there was a couple of little technical adjustments. I kind of got my hands to a lower position and tried to just generate a bit more bat flow as opposed to being a bit more stagnant with my hands and only being able to kind of jab at the ball and not really being able to have a full swing, if that makes sense. So that was something that I'd worked on for about 18 months to 2 years before I got that opportunity last year. Just a lot of tweaking with that, a lot of picking up a baseball bat and trying to hit a baseball bat with different weighted balls and just little things that coaches were really great and really innovative and really helped me in that space. So, but on a mixture of those two things, of a slight technical adjustment, but the mindset change, and I think then the belief that came after I scored some runs in that first game of the year, I think was the big one that then kind of allowed me to build on that belief and keep trying to put my best foot forward.
Out of interest, do you then switch your hands back to a higher position for longer form cricket, red ball cricket?
No, I don't. No, I kind of, along with my hands there, I used to have a trigger movement with my feet. I used to go back and across with my feet, and it was something that for probably the first 7 or 8, or the whole 8 years of my professional career I had. But it was always just one extra variable that I had to kind of get right. I had to time it in the right place. I had to make sure my head was still level when the ball was released, and for whatever reason, I'd never wanted to change it. I'd always kind of told myself the narrative that I needed to trigger, all these other players trigger. I need a trigger to be able to move and watch the ball. And some guys feel like that. So it's understandable. But yeah, a couple of pre-seasons ago, I just decided to get rid of it. I just thought I'd get rid of that variable, stay still with my feet. But it's very hard without having some sort of pre-movement with some part of your body to then face, particularly bowlers that bowl over 140 k's an hour. It's quite hard to not feel stuck. So I kept my feet still, and then just, as I mentioned before, lowered my hands, and then almost tried to just use my hands as a bit of a trigger to lift them up at the right time. And it kind of feels like I'm now able, I guess, to adapt between the different formats. So the hands don't change in their starting position. If anything, they just obviously you finish a little bit shorter in your swing than you do in white ball cricket. In red ball cricket, you have a shorter swing, and obviously you're batting in gear 1 or 2 for most of the time, as opposed to gear 4, 5, 6.
Wow, that's fascinating. So the Blues just fell short in the Marsh One Day Cup last season, and then were really crippled by injuries and COVID at the end of last season in the Sheffield Shield. What's the focus for the Blues this summer? Is it all about titles for you guys, or is there different benchmarks you're looking for?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're always, I think, like most states, it's always a bit of a balance. You want to produce young players that can play for Australia. So that's always something that I think every association is trying to strive towards. And at the same time, every time you walk out there, you want to win every game and you want to win every competition possible. So, yeah, looking at last year was an interesting one. We made that final in the One Day Cup, which is great. I think we finished 4th in the Shield game after losing the last game to South Australia. But, we probably didn't read into last year too much. Even though we made the final in the One Day Cup, we played 2 games for the year and he had 4 washouts. And then with the Shield stuff, it was a very unique year. We played Victoria 3 times in a row to start the season, and then didn't see another state until after the Big Bash. And then same thing. As you mentioned, we had a bit of COVID, and we had I broke my finger. Daniel Hughes broke his finger. We had a few guys out for different reasons, so it was a very different year. But nonetheless, the expectations are at New South Wales. There's certainly high expectations there that you're challenging for both titles every year. So now that we've had a fairly normal preseason, everything's back to full squad. We're not doing any shorter, groups of 6 to 8 with COVID regulations. So it's been really nice this year. So there's no excuses for us. Back to a full season, back to 10 games, back to 6 before the Big Bash. There's no reason for us to get in a nice groove and make sure that we're playing the important stuff at the end of March, April next year, as well as developing our young players that we've earmarked to have future potential.
And are you locked into a position yourself? I think you opened a couple of times in the Shield last year.
Yeah, I opened. I didn't play the last game with Hayden being born, but I opened in the second last game. Yeah, I mean we're not exactly sure what that's going to look like this year. I'll either open or bat 3. It probably depends on the lineup we go with, but I kind of thought it was something. Well, yeah, I expressed to the selectors that was something that I'd be interested in for this year. Was opening the batting. I'm not not absolutely dead set on it. I understand we've got some guys that are specialist openers, and if they're in our best 11 or if they're in our best 6 batters and they're in the team, then I've batted at 3 for most of my career, so I can do that and drop to 3 if those guys are in the 11. So it's been a pretty strong one day focus at the moment. So the Shield stuff, we haven't really ticked off those teams or what they'll exactly look like yet, because I think we've got about a week after our first one day game until the next Shield game. So I'd like to be up the top of the order if I can, but at the same time, whatever works for the team is kind of what we'll go with.
And who have you got penciled in for a breakout year this summer? Obviously, the injury to Tanveer Sanger is a big blow, but we saw Jason Sanger and Hayden Kerr making a bit of a name for themselves last year. Who's going to do that this year?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Really felt for Tanveer. That's quite fresh, actually. All of us only kind of found out about that yesterday at a centre wicket practice we had. So really sad. He's one of the hardest workers, which has probably been his downfall in the end. I think he's almost worked a bit too hard for what his body could endure. So it'll be a good learning curve for him, but I've no doubt he'll be back. And if that means for the Big Bash, I'm sure the Thunder won't be too displeased with a fresh Tanveer coming into the tournament. And if it's for us later on in the year, then the same deal. It'd be great to have him as fresh as possible, trying to win us a Shield. Look, I think someone like a Blake Nikitaris and Matt Gilkes, who are two top order left-hand players, but they were kind of 2 of the guys that I mentioned earlier have hit their straps in the right time of year. They've explored different parts of their game. Matt Gilkes was over playing in England this off-season. Blake Nikitaris is a rookie. He's had his first year with us, but he opened the batting in the last Shield game last year and kind of showed everyone a glimpse of what he can do. So those 2 guys are 2 picks that I'm tipping to have a really good year. And I think as well, on top of last year, I'm looking forward to see what Chris Tremaine can do. He kind of got his spot back last year and led our bowling attack. He was our best bowler from the moment he got selected. So his new ball skills I think have improved. Even for someone who's got a record as good as his new ball bowling seems to have gone to another level. So really excited to see what he can do when he takes a new ball for us.
And Tanveer obviously a big blow, and I know he would have been playing anyway, but Nathan Lyon available for the first 2 months of the season. What's it like having Gaz around the group and the energy that he brings?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Kind of glad, very, very selfish way, that the Aussie selectors don't view his white ball cricket as good enough to get picked. So it just means that we get him for a bit longer in the season. But he's got a very good record, white ball record for us at the Blues. Gaz is excellent around our group, particularly with young spinners. We have a lot of young spinners from around the Sydney grade scene that come in and bowl. Gaz always gives them plenty of plenty of time a day and really helps them with their game. And I think on top of that, he's excellent he's obviously bowled to a lot of world-class batters around the world. So for our batting group, when we practice on some spinning wickets and we get on some dusty wickets at training, he's also great at kind of showing us what different players do to him and what different players have done to make him feel certain ways. So it's always a bonus when we have Gaz or any of the Aussie guys for that matter, because we kind of plan with Phil Jakes and myself and the other coaches. We kind of plan our season around not having those guys, and we just treat whenever we have them as a bonus, because they're so busy. Even if they do have a free week here or there, it's totally understandable that they put their feet up and get ready for whatever the next Aussie tour is. So it's going to be fantastic, particularly losing Tanvir now. Having Nathan around for those first 2 months is going to be crucial for us. And I guess the silver lining of not having Tanvir is that it means there'll be a good opportunity for a young spinner to potentially play a couple of Shield games before the Big Bash.
And you spoke about wanting to open before. Does potentially that being the position that will come up next in the Australian side, does that sort of influence that decision, or is it just something you feel will be best suited for your game and bring the best out of your cricket for New South Wales?
Yeah, it's definitely a mixture of both. Obviously that's where I guess you look at that Australian team. I don't think Marnus or Steve Smith are going anywhere for a while, 3 and 4. So, but also I think for how I play my cricket, I know it's a very different format, but I just really enjoyed that time in the Big Bash last year, just going out there from ball one and being able just to play what's in front of me without any preconceived ideas when you sit on the sideline and watch. So, and it's an interesting one. I think if I probably go back and look at a lot of the hundreds I've scored for New South Wales, generally speaking, a lot of the time they happen when I'm in early. I tend to not score my best runs when we're 1 or 2 for 100 or 150 and plenty of things have gone on, whereas generally the less thinking and the quicker I'm out there, the higher the runs or the better I play. So it was definitely a mixture of both, but as I mentioned before, I'm not dead set on it. I'll kind of just be flexible with what the team wants, and kind of up until this year, I think the way our squad's been kind of put together is we've probably lacked a lot of opening batters. We've got a lot of top and middle order players in our squad, whereas that's changed a little bit this year, particularly with Blake Nikitaris coming on board and getting his first contract. So, we'll just have to wait and see what happens, but it's definitely a mixture of both those reasons.
Obviously, we want to see you add to your 2 tests as well, Kurtis. So does seeing like Usman Khawaja and his sort of second coming as a mature age recruit, and seeing that the selectors, they're prepared to pick someone again after they've already had a crack, does that give you a bit of hope as well that your Australian days are still could still be coming?
Yeah, it does. I haven't really lost hope, to be honest. I probably would have lost hope if I'd had a couple of blinding years and didn't find myself back in that team. But I've only can only look at myself for why I haven't been back there. I haven't had the consistent runs on the board, so that's totally understandable. But yeah, regarding Uzi, I thought that was really inspiring, actually. Yeah, because I'll be honest, I thought he was past his best there at one point. I kind of grew up going to New South Wales games and watching Usman play, and I just thought after them playing against him in some Shield cricket that he looked like he missed a step, but then he just not out of the blue, but for someone that's obviously not training with him, it just looked like out of the blue he just found something and found another gear. And I know, speaking to him, the birth of his first child, he's obviously got 2 now, and having that balance off the field seems like it's just really relaxed him. So trying to hope that Hayden, my little boy, can give me a bit of Usman's secret stuff in that way, and just allow me to go out there and play freely and enjoy my cricket. So I think what Usman's been able to do, and also how versatile he is, I think also. He can bat anywhere from 1. I think he batted 5 in Sydney when he scored those back-to-back hundreds. So that's also something that I think every cricketer aspires to be. You want to be as versatile as possible, and I'm no different.
Kurtis, thank you for being so generous with your time today. Good luck in the opening match on Friday, and hopefully plenty of runs coming from you this season.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
So, Jack, that was Kurtis Patterson. Some really good insights there about the Blues and this coming season. How do you see their season shaping up?
The Blues have always got a strong squad, but they've dealt major blows by being so good and having so many players representing Australia. So their depth will be tested again, and they've got as you mentioned, they've got a lot of young opening batters coming through. Big blow in losing Tanvir Sanger because he was set to play alongside Nathan Lyon for the first 2 months of the season. But there's some promising talent there. We saw Blake Nikitaris, Ryan Hackney, Matt Gilks, Hayden Kerr. All those guys performed strongly last year, and Blues will certainly be hoping they can come along and continue their development this year.
And, of course, they've got that steady middle order of Patterson himself, Moises Henriques, and Jason Sanger had a massive year as well. And I'm sure the Aussie selectors will be keeping a close eye on him this year.
Absolutely. It's been the breakout season we've kind of been waiting for Jason Sanger. He was contracted at 16 years old by New South Wales, and he showed glimpses of his talent. But last year he's just stepped up. Seemed like he was really enjoying his cricket, stepped up as a leader, and it's a great thing for him. It's a great thing for New South Wales, and he's just been awarded the vice captaincy as well of New South Wales. So expecting big things from him this summer.
So, we spoke about those spin stocks. Obviously, it's unlikely we'll see Tanvir for the first half of the season, but Nathan Lyon will definitely be there, at least until the Test series starts against the West Indies. Do they have anyone else they can sort of fall back on if they want to play two spinners in the absence of Tanvir?
We saw Jason Sanger bowl quite a bit last year, so they've got some options there, and Adam Zampa as well, who potentially could float in after Nathan Lyon for the back end of November after the ODIs against England. And they've also got Arjun Nair as well, I think might be off contract, but he certainly played in the second 11 game last week against Victoria. So there's a few options there, but yes, certainly they'll love having Gaz around the side and Zampa, hopefully, if he can slot in for a few games.
And we know that Hazelwood, Cummins, Stark are all in that squad, but are probably unlikely to play too much cricket. How's their pace sort of department shaping up? They also lost Harry Conway to South Australia, so it's going to be a bit of a different looking attack, I'd say.
Yeah, well, they've got Chris Tremaine there and Trent Copeland, and Tremaine didn't play at all the season before last, and then came back and took 20 odd wickets, absolutely killed it towards the back end of the season. So he's a talent. He's a Sheffield Shield winning player of the year. So they've got him. They've got Trent Copeland, who's always a solid performer. They've got Hayden Kerr as well, Jack Edwards, and Mickey Edwards, his brother, is back from injury. Just saw, so that's exciting. I think he took a 5-wicket haul in one of the practice games against Victoria. So that's good to hear for Mickey Edwards. They've got a few other options. They've got Ben Dwarshuis and Daniel Sams in the one-day cup stuff. So they're stacked with left armers there. So they're quite strong. It's whether those guys will play any red ball cricket, I probably wouldn't have thought so. They're mainly white ball bowlers, but they've got plenty of options. And because of those Aussie guys, they can have up to 30 players or more in their squad. So there's quite a bit of depth there, and we'll just have to wait and see who gets a nod for the first Marsh Cup game against Victoria, and then obviously the Shield game after that.
Yeah, they're always going to be strong, aren't they, the Blues? So if you had to make a big call now, looking ahead to their season, who's going to make the most runs for the Blues and who's going to take the most wickets in the Sheffield Shield?
I'm a bit split here with the most runs. I think just hearing from Kurtis Patterson, he seems really hungry. He wants to bat at the top of the order if he can. So I think he's going to have a big year, but hard to go past Jason Sanger. He had a breakout year last year, just looks so at ease with his own game. So I'm really excited to see if he can back it up again this season and where that puts him, if he does, in terms of national selection, because everyone knows the talent that he's got. And once he starts stringing a few consistent performances together, the sky's the limit.
And most wickets?
Most wickets. Well, I would have said Tanvir Sanger, but unfortunately we won't see him for the first half of the season. Let's go with Chris Tremaine. Hard to go past Chris Tremaine. Solid performer. You just know what to expect from him. He'll run in, hit the deck hard, swing the ball both ways, try and hit the stumps. Expecting another big year from him.
So there you have it. New South Wales kick off their Marsh One Day Cup campaign on Friday against Victoria. Jack, thanks for joining us for this edition of the Unplayable Podcast, and please do join us for when we talk to Jordan Silk next week for the Tasman Preview.
Thanks, Josh. Catch you next time.